Hey everybody, it's Steve from Black Octopus Sound here, and we're going to talk about 3 creative techniques to help you get the most out of your royalty-free samples. 2 out of the 3 techniques are Ableton specific, so we will cover the technique that's for everybody first. The following technique is applicable to kick drums, snares, and literally any other type of drum hit. To showcase the technique, I've selected 3 kick drums from Leviathan 4. What I'm doing is taking 3 different kick drums, extracting different components of each of them, and then combining them to make one new huge fat kick drum. So here are the originals. I've gone through the Leviathan 4 sample pack and chose 3 kick drums that I liked certain characteristics of. I'm going to take the best of all of them and combine them. For our first sample, I've chosen this kick drum and I've elected to isolate just the transient. I could have done this manually inside the browser, and you can too, but I've elected to use ShaperBox instead because I really love how it performs. Here's the kick without any modification. What I've done in ShaperBox, I will redo from scratch here so you can see it for yourself. I'm going to add a new volume shaper module and selecting the trim option. Right out of the gate, it's given me a nice little curve that helps me isolate just the transient. The next important thing is I'm going to select audio here so that the ShaperBox plugin is triggered by the audio hit. The next step is to just tighten this up a little bit more and really isolate that transient. Perfect. I've replicated the same thing with the second layer here. So to show you how it sounds, this is the original kick. And again, I like the snappiness of that transient. So I've elected to use ShaperBox to isolate it. And here we go. Now I have 2 different transients layered over top of each other for the initial attack of this new kick drum that I'm designing. Nice and snappy and punchy. And here is that third kick. When I scrolled through this kick, I wasn't in love with the transient, but I did like the roundness of its tail. So I've decided to use the body of this kick in combination with the transient of these other 2 kicks. Again, I've used ShaperBox, but I used it a little bit differently. So I'll show you how I built this from the ground up. I've added a volume module, a volume shaper module with the sidechain feature selected this time. And it gives me this curve where the initial attack is actually cut off. And again, like last time, I'm going to select audio so the audio triggers the ShaperBox device rather than it continuously being synced to my BPM. And so now I'm going to take a look at this kick drum here. And so we've lost most of the kick. I'm just going to tightly snug this back over here minus the transient. So now let's include the other 2 transients and see how it sounds. A kick like that will thud on a sound system while piercing through the mix. To really add some extra sauce, I've created a rack of my own here to help glue it all together. So I've used an addition of Ableton's glue compressor with the attack turned up all the way to 30 milliseconds with the release all the way down and a ratio of 4. So I pulled the threshold down until I was getting a little bit of gain reduction here. And what that's doing is it's creating a deeper level of cohesion amongst the 3 layers I have. And it just tightens it up just a little bit more. You don't have to do this, but I love this compressor. It's Universal Audio's edition of the distressor. It just adds a lovely, sharp, punchy character to drum hits. And so again, much like the glue, I turn the attack all the way up with the release all the way down. And I start with my dry wet knob all the way up. And then I elected to pull it down to just a little bit over 50% dry wet here. So it adds just a little bit of extra snap to the drum. That sounds completely different than the 3 original kick drums. Technique number 2 is one of my favorite tricks in Ableton. What I've done is I've taken a music loop that I really like the riff, and some sample packs will have such absolutely dynamite music loops that they'll be so popular that a wide variety of producers from all over the world will want to use them. This technique helps me piggyback off a dynamite melody that exists in a music loop while making it completely different and new from scratch. Because the loop is in 110 beats per minute, I'm using this drum loop from Gritty Glitch Hop on Black Octopus Sound as a backing drum track. Here's the melody loop that I've pulled from the Leviathan 4 sample pack, and we're going to remake with some different synths. And so what we're going to do is we're going to recreate this exact same synth using Serum with different Serum presets. The way that we do that from scratch is we're going to right click the audio clip in Ableton, and we're going to scroll down to where it says convert melody to new MIDI track. So we're going to let Ableton do its thing, and it's going to spit us out a new track with its interpretation of the MIDI for this audio clip. I've already done that, so I'm going to use my original here. But one thing I will mention is this feature will get you about 99% there, and you may have to make one or two minor adjustments in order to get the MIDI exactly perfect. So here's what it sounds like with a Serum and Knit preset. And so what I've done is I've created a few different layers here so you can see this technique in action. So this is a fun little ARP mid-range synthesizer riff. This is the ARP Horizon preset taken from Leviathan 4's Serum presets. This is a bass patch from Leviathan 4's Serum preset library with the same melody. And just for fun, here's one additional bass patch with that same melody. Now we have 3 different new synth lines that we can use to create a completely different sounding track with. Technique number 3 is a trick that I've been using in Ableton forever, and it is absolutely dynamite. It's a fun and creative way to rearrange a chord loop that makes the chord progression unique and original. To help showcase this, I'm using this Leviathan 4 drum loop with 150 beats per minute as a backing track. And here is the chord loop that I've taken from the Leviathan 4 sample pack. To work with this chord progression, I've created another edition of it here. I'm going to click it and we're going to open up this window here. And one thing that's important is that we activate warp if it's not already activated by default. And then from here, we're going to put a warp marker in exactly the position of each new chord that's played. Once we've done that, we go back to the clip and we right click it and we click Slice to New MIDI Track. Now this next piece is important. By default, it's likely selected as transient, but we want to actually make sure that the warp marker is selected. And so with the Slice to New MIDI Track feature with warp marker selected, what's going to happen, it's going to render out a drum rack instrument with each of our warp markers placed into a pad in the drum rack. And so from here, we can write new MIDI in the piano roll, or if our MIDI controller has a touchpad, we can assign our MIDI controller to the touchpads of this drum rack machine and literally play a new chord progression by hand. So I've made 2 editions of this chord progression here. So here's the original once again. And so here is me doing it with the melody rearranged. And then in the next MIDI clip, I started cutting and slicing it a little bit more to give it more character and a little bit of glitch. And so now from here, we're going to go examine what we have available to us inside of Ableton's piano roll. The MIDI sequence here is organized exactly how it's played inside the original chord loop. That's obviously not the point here. So what we're going to do is we're just going to get in here and start having some fun with some experimenting, applying notes to different chords in different moments of the progression. So you could even make a brand new melody here using the same chords. It's a quick and easy way to completely rearrange a chord progression however we see fit. Thanks so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you haven't already, click like on this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more tutorials like this. If you like ridiculously high quality free samples, you can check out Black Octopus's free 1 GB sample pack that is the cream of the crop of many of our sample pack releases throughout the last year. You can find a link for that in the description below. As of the time of shooting this video, Leviathan 4 is actually on sale along with the rest of the Leviathan series. It's $29 for each edition and $49 for the entire anthology. The sale is running until end of day June 10th, 2024. If you're watching this video after the sale is over, I'm going to leave you a coupon code down in the description for you to use. This will also get you the anthology for $49. The anthology itself has 21,000 of our best sounds, as well as 575 Serum presets. All of that for $49 is ridiculous. Until next time, stay inspired.